Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission for you is to explore just one single photograph. It's pretty unassuming, captured almost a decade ago.
Sounds simple.
It does, but this one image and what the author did to it, well, it unpacks these huge concepts. We're talking about photographic truth, technology, and this fascinating way we digitally edit our own memories.
Yeah, and we're pulling this from a really recent reflection piece. It's part of a series called Notes on Photography, published just last year.
Okay.
And what the author is doing is he's using this one old image from his archive to ask a really fundamental question. What does authenticity even mean anymore when you're looking at a photo that's been enhanced years after the fact?
Okay, so let's unpack that journey. We are going to move from a really humble starting point, a photo the author himself calls crappy, all the way to this powerful, stylized image that feels, well, almost iconic. The core insight we want you to walk away with is understanding how that transformation, that whole process, it sort of reflects the entire state of photography right now. It's this move from capturing reality to, I guess, optimizing memory. So let's set the scene, the initial capture. The author is standing somewhere really high up, grabbing this soaring bird's eye view of his city.
It's the kind of perspective that just screams for high-quality gear.
It does. But he made a very specific, a very conscious choice. He actually notes that he left the beast, that big DSLR or professional camera. He left it behind.
And that wasn't just for convenience. It really defined the technical challenge from the get-go. He chose, and he says this, the humble camera on a 2014-ish phone.
2014, that choice really matters.
It matters a lot because, think back to 2014. Phone cameras were popular, sure, but they fundamentally struggled with complex light, with dynamic range, with resolution, especially when you compare it to pro equipment.
Exactly. So he notes the raw quality was, and this is his word, crappy. He had this amazing, difficult, high vantage shot, but the technology just put these hard limits on it.
It would have been flat, probably. Muddy looking.
Totally. Lacking in contrast. And yet, he loved the shot itself. He said it held a certain charm. The moment was perfect, even if the recording device wasn't.
And that contrast is the entire premise here. The view, the perspective, the effort to get that high up for a bird's eye view, that was ambitious.
Right.
But the execution, because of the tech he had access to at the time, was limited. So we're left with this raw, kind of underachieving file. And that's the perfect starting point to show just the massive power of post-processing.
And that's where the story gets really compelling. The transition point here is so interesting because the author uses such a basic tool to get this dramatic, almost sophisticated result. He decides, years later, to pull this photo out and fix it. But this wasn't, an afternoon in Adobe Photoshop.
No, not at all. It was done with a single, simple, open-source application. He specifies he used a simple gThumb adjustment.
gThumb. So for anyone who doesn't know, what is that?
It's a very approachable, pretty standard image viewer and editor. You see it a lot on Linux systems. And the fact that this huge change came from simple utility, not some expensive, complex software, that right there sort of democratizes the whole process.
So what was the magic button? What did he actually do?
It was the auto contrast correction, specifically using what the author calls the equalize algorithm.
Okay, that's the key technical piece we need to get. When you say equalize algorithm, what is that actually doing to that flat 2014 image data?
So at a high level, it's a form of histogram equalization. Think of an image's tones, the distribution of blacks, grays, and whites.
Okay.
In that original crappy photo, all those tones were likely just bunched up in the middle. There were no true blacks or true whites, which is what makes it look so muddy.
Ah, got it.
The equalize function, it automatically forces the camera's limited data to use every single brightness level available.
So it's like it's stretching a rubber band.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It stretches the contrast across the entire tonal range. It brings out details that were, just hidden in the shadows or the midtones.
Yeah.
And this dramatic increase in contrast is what instantly brought the photo to life, as he put it.
But it did more than just make it clearer. It gave it a specific feel. It wasn't just corrected. It felt like it was retrofitted with a whole aesthetic.
And that retrofitting led to this distinct film-like nostalgic glow. This is the essence of digital nostalgia that we really have to explore.
Okay.
The correction, that aggressive stretching of contrast, it ironically mimics the characteristics you often find in older chemical prints, those slightly exaggerated tones or deep, rich shadows that we associate with prints made in a dark room decades ago.
That's kind of astonishing that a simple algorithm, just a line of code, can instantly mimic the aging and chemical processes of a totally different physical thing.
It speaks to the power of aesthetic shortcuts. The author noted the change visually transported the photo back to the early 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
And we see this everywhere today, right? From Instagram filters to automatic phone edits, digital tools are constantly being used to make modern pictures look older, to evoke these powerful, often non-digital memories. We're using modern tech to give our visual history a kind of a preferred nostalgic aesthetic. The digital filter becomes the preferred reality.
Hang on, though. Is this just intellectualizing a filter? I mean, does the author really suggest that a simple contrast bump, an algorithm designed for clarity, is really comparable to the whole complex experience of, like, 80s film development? Isn't that a bit of a stretch?
Well, it's less about it being comparable and more about the effect it produces.
Yeah.
The equalize algorithm gives a result that reads as vintage to our modern eyes. Because we are so conditioned now to seeing these digitally enhanced, high-contrast, stylized images that mimic film grain or specific color shifts, the visual language of the past is now it's shorthand. And the author realized his simple adjustment successfully tapped right into that shorthand. It just shows how easily our memory can be hijacked by an aesthetic that we find pleasing.
If that simple algorithm can hijack our memory, that leads us right into the philosophical heart of this whole piece. Once you have the crappy original and the beautiful artificially vintage version, you have to ask about truth.
That's the core question he poses directly in the text. 10 years after the moment was captured, which reality, the before correction or the after, was true.
Right.
It forces us to define authenticity. Is truth the verifiable data that the sensor recorded, as limited and muddy as it was? Or is truth the enhanced data that just aligns better with our subjective memory?
And the author gives us a really useful anchor point for memory here. He says that while the specifics have faded, he probably doesn't remember the exact time or what was said. One thing is absolutely clear.
What's that?
The memory of that overcast sky remains. He describes it so well as a silent witness to the scene.
And what's so fascinating there is the contrast between objective and subjective memory.
Yeah.
The overcast sky, that's the objective truth. It's a meteorological, verifiable fact of the day. You couldn't just edit that away.
Right.
But the feeling, the mood, that nostalgic glow that is entirely supplied and enhanced by the digital correction. We are creating a composite memory, synthesizing objective truth and subjective feeling through a simple algorithm.
So when we look back, we end up prioritizing the subjective feeling that the filter delivered. We're basically saying the corrected photo feels more like how I want to remember that perfect view, even if my camera didn't actually capture it that way.
And that raises an important question for you, for the learner. When that aesthetic enhancement is so powerful, does the subjective enhanced memory effectively just override the objective raw data?
We might not even realize it, but we are so often prioritizing the emotionally satisfying version over the technical fidelity of what was actually captured. And if a simple algorithm can hijack our perception of the past, it also makes you ask, why are we suddenly getting access to these powerful perspectives in the first place? Let's zoom out from the single image to the bigger picture here. The perspective itself, the bird's eye view.
Yes.
This is the real so what of the piece.
The democratization of that perspective is a critical takeaway. The author had this realization while he was writing that capturing such a sweeping cityscape used to require this immense, often costly effort.
Right. I mean, if you wanted that kind of vantage point 10, 20 years ago, your options were limited. You either had to, get permission to access the roof of the tallest building?
Which required connections, patience.
For sure.
Yeah.
Or you needed to find a natural towering vantage point. It was not a casual, everyday perspective. It was, it was reserved for the daring or the patient or the elite who had access.
And that restricted access created a specific, almost rarefied aesthetic. The image itself felt important because the perspective was so hard to achieve. The technological surge of just the past decade has completely shattered that restriction. As the author says, today's technology has revolutionized photography for everyday people.
And the primary driver of this shift is named explicitly in the source, drone-powered shots. The entire category of the high-angle bird's-eye view has gone from requiring immense effort to being, as he says, accessible and effortless.
Just think about the cultural impact of that. A professional photographer used to need a helicopter or some complex jump system to get the view the author captured. Now, a consumer drone, for a few $100s, can capture vistas that he says often surpass those old methods. That bird's eye view, which was difficult even for him with his 2014 phone, is now so easily achieved that it's common currency.
And this has massive implications beyond just taking nice photos. When everyone, not just city planners or wealthy photographers, has access to the full visual geography of a space, when we can all see the rooftops and the forgotten corners, it has to change our relationship with the urban landscape itself.
It's an aesthetic shift that informs how we view density, design, maybe even surveillance, all thanks to this technological ease.
It also creates a new kind of aesthetic fatigue, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When a perspective becomes ubiquitous, it loses its power. What once was a breathtaking hard-won vantage point is now just another angle on Instagram.
Which you can instantly edit to look like it was captured decades ago.
Exactly. It closes the loop right back to nostalgia. We use the nostalgic filter to try and restore the sense of importance that the perspective has lost through its own democratization.
It's a really powerful cycle. You have the ease of capture, the democratization of the view, and then immediately this need to digitally manipulate it to sort of restore its aesthetic value. So, to summarize our journey for you today, we started with one humble, crappy 2014 phone shot. We saw how a simple algorithm, equalize in gThumb, could instantly transform it into a piece of digital nostalgia. And that technical process led us to this really profound meditation on digital authenticity, the subjective nature of our own memory, and the macro trend of technological access that has fully democratized that breathtaking bird's eye view.
Yeah, the shift isn't just about how photos are taken, but who gets to take them. And the complex filter we now apply, consciously or not, to our digital memories. We're constantly making the past feel like the past, even if the raw data didn't actually capture that feeling. We're optimizing our archives for emotional recall.
So what does this all mean? I mean, the democratization of photography is incredible. We can now access perspectives that were previously reserved for the elite or the daring. But if every casual shot can be instantly edited, retrofitted to evoke a film-like nostalgic glow, we have to wonder, have we stopped prioritizing the accurate capture of reality and simply started optimizing for the most emotionally satisfying memory? Something for you to consider the next time you're browsing your phone archives and you instantly apply a filter to bring that old moment to life.